Sometimes when it comes to filming videos, I like to do what I call rough drafts or practice drafts because I don't script out my videos. I just kind of run off the cuff. And this is the case for this one. I filmed it yesterday, wasn't too happy with it, so we're going to try this again. So here comes my March wrap up. Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing my March wrap up. It is the end of another month, and this month I managed to read 8 books. And right now, even though I felt like I set such a high Goodreads reading goal, I'm not feeling pressured by it because I'm really enjoying the amount and the quality of reading that I'm getting done. So I'm just kind of enjoying all of these audiobooks and books I've physically read and just really enjoying these couple months of reading I've had. Now for March was one of the first months in a while that I actually set a TBR. I started when I first started and then just kind of stopped because I wasn't sticking to them anyway. But I started setting TBRs because there's a couple of goals I try to hit each month. The first goal is, of course, to read a classic every month. My second goal is to read a Christian living or to start a Christian living or a Christian nonfiction book. I might not get those done every month, but I at least want to get some more of those read. For March, I didn't even start one, so for April, I'm going to pick one and start one, because for March I didn't exactly pick one, I just stated I'm going to do this. The first book I read this month was The Book Jumper by Mitchell Glazier. I did do a full review of this, so if you guys want to hear more of my thoughts, I'll leave it up here. I won't go too much into it. I did give it a 4-star rating, I think, or a 3-star rating. To be honest, I don't always remember my ratings. I used to be writing them down, but I've lost track of them this month, so if I forget to give you guys a star rating, my Goodreads link is down below so you guys can check out what I star rated them. Like I said, there's a full review of that which I'll link up here, whatever corner it ends up in. I'll link it so you guys can check that out. Then, because I was in between books and hadn't really established a TBR at the time and wasn't too sure what to pick up next, and the audiobook was available for Heartless by Marissa Meyer, so I took that out of my library and decided to give this one a reread. I really enjoyed the audiobook. I enjoyed the story again. I wanted to give it a reread because I think I read it too fast the first time because I was trying to speed read it and finish it for the end of the year to count towards my previous Goodreads reading goal. So I kind of sped read it and didn't really get the full story of it, so I wanted to reread it and just say, did I really like it as much as I did? And I think I did. I enjoyed Kath as a character, I enjoyed the story through audiobook, and I really enjoyed the whimsy of it through Alice in Wonderland. I have read Alice in Wonderland in the past, and I've mentioned this once before. I actually prefer retellings of Alice in Wonderland to the original or worlds built off of that world. For some reason, I just like people taking the whimsicalness of it and making it something different. The next book I picked up is a library book, which was already returned, and that was Ever the Brave by Erin Somerville. This one I gave a 3-star rating. This one follows Britta, who is the daughter of a bounty hunter for the kingdom, and her father has passed away, so she's kind of left to fend for herself. She gets caught up and hired to track down supposedly her father's killer, who is also her father's protege or apprentice, and also one of her dearest friends. So she goes on this journey. It's set in this fantastical world. You find there's a lot of intrigue and political intrigue as well, and I found it pretty fascinating. It was relatively clean. I had no issues with the content. There's a couple of cringy moments where a guy is threatening assault or abuse just in the way to kind of freak her out and make her feel beneath him and to make her feel like dirt, as well as to anger the other male character and kind of like sort of go after her in front of him to anger him. Nothing really happens and everything is kind of stopped before it goes too far, but it's just really cringy, so I want to give that heads up. The other reason I kept it at a 3-star rating, it was just very tropey. It had a lot of those typical YA tropes. Now, I really enjoyed a lot of those tropes, so I did still enjoy the story, but it reminded me of a lot of other YA books. So I kind of just left it at a 3-star rating, but it's a pretty solid, I believe it's a debut book, it's a pretty solid debut, and it was overall a very entertaining story. The next book I picked up again through audiobook, and that was Emma by Jane Austen. This was the classic I chose to read this month. For some reason, I remember not enjoying the Gwyneth Paltrow movie, or I think one of the BBC movies. I remember watching it way back in the day and not enjoying it as much, so I didn't think I would like Emma, even though a lot of people that I met on the booktube community, Emma is their favorite. I was correct in thinking that so far this is not my favorite Jane Austen. Now granted, aside from watching all the movies and the BBC miniseries, I've only actually read Northanger Abbey, but between the two that I've actually read, I really like Northanger Abbey, and I was not a fan of Emma. I can see why people really enjoy Emma, but I was just full-on annoyed and exhausted by all of these characters except for Mr. Knightley. But I liked how Emma was just humbled at the end and just got what was coming to her. A lot of the issues just kind of wrapped themselves up really nice, and Emma was just like, oh, didn't see that coming, but she didn't really have to face the music to a lot of her own consequences, which is why I wasn't a huge fan. But yeah, so Emma wasn't my favorite Jane Austen right now. It still kept it at a 3-star rating. It was still mildly entertaining. I appreciate Jane Austen's writing and her characters and the conversations that she writes, but the characters just drove me nuts. The next book I picked up was our Coffee Chapters and Christian YA book club pick for March. This was our new feature because we've been just going through a Hagenheim read-along. We haven't had a lot of new releases coming out, especially in winter. So this was Olivia Twist by Lorraine Langdon. I actually really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3-star rating. There's a couple of content moments where you talk about kids being sold into very difficult situations and what happened to some of them, and some of them were pretty dark and actually really devastating to read. But that you also have like the prostitution and stuff that was kind of during that workhouse time period for Oliver Twist, and then just Olivia gets teased a couple of times of being a prostitute or just men hackling her. There was also a very interesting moment between the two romantic leads that got a little too much, and if it wouldn't have stopped, I was going to get very concerned if it got any farther than that, but it stopped before it got further. But I was still a little like, that was really pushing it. But there's just a couple moments, so I only left it at a 3-star rating. But other than that, the story was really intriguing. The mystery around everything, the characters are really well done, and the interaction between all of them was really good. But I also really enjoyed that this was not just a gender swap retelling of Oliver Twist, but was actually a sequel to Oliver Twist. If Oliver in the original Oliver Twist was actually a girl being raised as a boy to protect him or protect her from what could happen to her as a girl in that situation. So if the whole Oliver Twist story had happened, but Oliver had been a girl the whole time, this is the sequel to that, sort of. And I really liked that concept. I enjoyed it a lot more than just a full-on retelling of Oliver Twist. And then of course you get like the older teenager or young adult perspective of the characters instead of as kids. I will be doing a live show for this book for our book club, so I will leave any announcements once I have a date set on all of our book club social medias, so make sure you're watching out for that. The next book I picked up was a reread, and that was The Evaporation of Sophie Snow by Mary Weber. I think I ended up enjoying this a lot more on audiobook. I think I understood a lot more of what was going on. And I have done a full review, so I still had some issues with some of the content problems that I had originally. But thankfully, the sequel actually made up for a lot of things and made me understand a couple of things a lot more from The Evaporation of Sophie Snow. A big problem I've had with Mary Weber's books is her tough-as-nails female characters with a tragic past or abuse in the past or whatever. And I haven't really been a fan of her female characters for that reason. But I did enjoy this on audiobook. I got a lot more information from this and started to connect a lot of pieces a lot better than I did the first time. Now with Mary Weber's sequels, I'm always hoping for some sort of redemption or to correct any issues or to clarify any issues that I had with the first couple books. But I did not get that with the Storm Siren trilogy. However, I got it with the Reclaiming of Shiloh Snow. I gave this book a 3.5-star rating. There were still some issues with some of the language. They were still using oh gad, G-A-D, instead of oh god. And it was just, it got a lot. There was a lot of usage of that, and it kind of drove me nuts. And like once or twice it would have been like, okay, you're covering that up, but you're using it a lot, that it became swearing to me instead of just fake swearing. So if you're going to use it, I'd say use it sparingly, but it just became a little too much. But with her tough as nails female characters, I finally got some clarification on Sophie and some of the things she did and why she reached out to bad habits and bad lifestyles and what kind of happened to her. Also, I had a lot less content issues with this, which was really good, and I really enjoyed the story. The sequel really blew me away, and I was really, really happy with it. It really full out rounded the first book for me, and just kind of brought everything together. What I also like about this duology, it is calling attention to a problem that we are having in our world today, and that is human trafficking. These books are speaking out or giving attention to a problem that we have in our own world of human trafficking, human slaves, and kind of giving that in this dystopian world setting, but it's still a real world issue. I left Evaporation of Sophie Snow at a 3-star rating, still had some issues with some of the content, but I bumped the Reclaiming of Shiloh Snow up to a 3.5-star rating because I still had some minor issues with it, but I still was really surprised by it and really enjoyed the story concept. The last book I just finished in one shot the day before filming this, and that is Captive Maiden by Melanie Dickerson. This is part of our Hagenheim read-along, so this was our book for March. So I finished that, and I really enjoyed this book on audiobook. I think I enjoyed this book a lot more the second time around than I did the first time around, so I really enjoyed this. I think I bumped it up to a 5-star or 4-star. I think I only had this at a 3 or a 4-star originally, and I bumped it up to whatever star. So those are all the books I read in March. As always, if you guys have any questions or concerns about any of the content in any of the books I talked about, leave those linked down below. I'll answer them as best as I can. And I also like hearing about what your favorite books for the month were. So let me know in the comments below what books you read or what your favorites were. I really like hearing about them, guys, and I love chatting with you guys in the comments. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!